It applies to most everything you do, the KISS method. No, that doesn't involve lips. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I mean I get to kiss somebody? No, it doesn't mean you get to kiss somebody. Anybody know what KISS means? Keep it
Simple.
simple. And the other S?
Stupid.
Stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Right, yeah. Keep it as direct as possible. So the best thesis statements are just saying it. And for me, that's the best thesis statement. So the shortest possible way we can say what we're going to say in the thesis statement is the most effective way to do it. Does that make sense? Or when you say it like that, right? And then what we do is we use the topic to form the thesis statement. To make sure, and I know you've learned this before when you're writing extended responses or ACEs writing, you take the prompt and you kind of take it apart. And you pull out the key things that you want to make sure you address in there, right? And that's going to help lead you in what you say in your topic sentence. And when you think about it, a topic sentence and a thesis statement are really cousins. They're very similar. I know you guys have written some essays. What's a topic sentence do? It tells what the paragraph is going to be about. That being said, what does a thesis statement do? It tells what the whole essay is going to be about, right? So it's broader. It's more encompassing. It's a bigger part. All right. Well, what I have cooked up here is something that anybody could write about, and I chose sport issue. Who in here plays softball? And baseball. Who in here plays baseball? Okay? So you have a general idea about those sports, right? If you've never played softball, you've at least watched it. If you've never played baseball, you've at least watched it, right? So you have a general idea about what those sports are. Can we go with the next slide, please? Thank you, Vanna. Thank you, Vanna White. So what we would do is, do you ever use Excel program or use Google Sheets? Ever use that? And it has the grids drawn out for you? Well, this is the same thing, right? So if I had a grid, right, and I had a top box up here, if I had a top box up here, this would be my topic. Why would I choose, go back one, please. Your back and my back are two different things. All right, go back one more. All right. So if my top box here is my topic itself, because what am I comparing and contrasting? Answer? Say it. Softball and baseball. That's my topic. Where did I take that from? The assignment or the prompt. You with me? Because that's what I'm going to compare and contrast. All right? Now, this is one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but one way you could write a compare and contrast essay is to dedicate one of your body paragraphs to how they're the same and another paragraph on how they are different. You follow what I mean? What are some things that are the same about softball and baseball?
They both use a sphere.
They both use a sphere. So we talked about some ways that they're the same. What are some things that are different between those two sports?
Bases are like farther away.
In baseball, they are however many feet away, but in softball, they are depending on the level that you're playing. But for the most part, they are longer, farther apart in baseball than they are in softball. So there are some differences that we could talk about. And what we would do with that, if we were following this Google Sheets idea, is we would list in a box, don't go yet, we would list in a box, we would list what all those similarities are over here, and we would list what all these contrasts or these differences were, and then we would start to make choices, kind of like your Christmas list. Mom says come up with a Christmas list. 5 pages later, you have your Christmas list. You know you're not going to get everything, but there's some main ones that you really want to focus on. Same thing here, some main ones you want to focus on, because once again, we want to compare and contrast softball and baseball. I feel so empowered. Once again, compare means similarities, contrast means differences, right? And what these are going to be in the paper that I would be writing or assigning for you to write would be, I want to write a body paragraph that's going to show how they're similar, and I'm going to write a body paragraph that's going to show how they're different. And what am I comparing and contrasting? Softball and baseball, not rugby and tiddlywinks, right? I'm going to focus on those two things. Ooh. All right, so what I would do then when it's time to write the thesis statement, and what I teach the ninth graders to do is write your thesis statement immediately. Why? Well, if it tells, as Latham pointed out, if the thesis statement tells exactly what the entire essay is going to be about, don't I really need a goal or an objective? Or if I were taking a trip, don't I really need a destination? Right? So if I say on vacation I'm going to go to California, that would be my thesis statement, in a way. It's my goal, it's my objective, it's my destination. You follow what I'm saying? Now, how I'm going to get there, I have a lot of things to choose from. What I'm going to do when I get there, again, I have a lot of things to choose from. But right now, that's my destination. So what I do when I'm teaching kids to write these is to keep it simple and to focus on the main things that you're going to do in the paper. Here's the key, without being too specific. What I find a lot of times the students want to do is they want to tell me about the size of the ball, or the color of the ball, or the type of bats in the thesis statement. You don't need to tell me that stuff there. That's for later.
Thank you.
That's for later. It's like a magician. Magician comes in, he's got a hat. He says, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat. That's the thesis statement. He doesn't tell how he's going to do it. It's not going to show you a little trick door underneath the table, or he's got two rabbits. He's not going to tell you any of that. He's just going to say, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat. That's your thesis statement. Don't get specific, because once again, keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it simple. What are you going to address? Softball and baseball share some similarities, but have many differences. Now, here's what I ask my ninth grade students to do. Read that sentence and see if that tells me exactly what your essay is going to be about. Does it do that? Then it's a successful thesis statement. That's all I need to say. This is why it's not hard. It's not hard because I'm not being specific. I'm just telling you, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of my hat. And then do it. Softball and baseball share some similarities but have many differences. Notice, softball, baseball, I can't touch it. Similarities, differences, all mixed together in that sentence. Now, that's not hard, is it? And where did that come from? If you remember the prompt at the beginning, can you go back a space? One more. Came from here. Compare and contrast softball, baseball. I borrow those terms because we know compare means similar or different. And we know contrast means, so I just substituted those words for these and included softball and baseball. And that's how I was able to come up with this. There they are, compare similarities, contrast differences. And I put those together and formed this. This sentence is placed at the end of the introduction. That's what I teach ninth graders. That's what I teach 11th graders. That's what I teach college writing kids. I have your brother in college writing, right? Yeah. And I teach them that's where you put a thesis statement, because that's where it goes. Where does the roof go on a building? In the basement? It goes on top. Thank goodness we have one today because it's raining outside, right? There's certain places where certain things go. You don't put the roof in the basement. You don't put the basement on the roof. It wouldn't be much of a basement, right? This is where these things go, and this goes at the end of the introduction. Anybody lost so far? All right, so let's think of two other things that we could do similarities and differences for, besides baseball and softball. Somebody throw out a combination of things that have some similarities and some differences. Who in here likes to eat? Okay. Let's compare and contrast Mexican food with Chinese food. Who likes Mexican food? Who likes Chinese food? I picked a winner. Okay, let's say Mexican is first and Chinese is second. Let's talk about some similarities. How are they similar? They're both food. All right, show your answer. What would you say? Are both spicy?
Can be.
General Tso's chicken, you guys don't eat that when you're
Oh,
here? Is there not some spice to that? What's that? They do. So we could say one of the similarities is that they're spicy. Can be, not all, but both offer spicy menu items, correct? What's another thing we could say of how they're similar? It's a white type of food. Go ahead.
Can be chicken.
Use chicken. That's true. Both of them take advantage of chicken. Yes? Rice. There's the white. Both of them feature rice in their dishes quite a bit, do they not? Right? What's something else? Not only do they use chicken sometimes, meats, beef, right? Can you get beef as part of a meal, Chinese and Mexican? Absolutely. Can you get poultry? Or we did poultry. Can we get pork in both? Yes. So they use meats, right? They use rice. Do they use fresh vegetables? Can you get onions, let's say, in both? Sure. Fresh vegetables are a part of that too. All right? What are some differences?
Two different cultures.
Two different cultures. That's very true. Two different cultures. Other similar or other differences. A lot of times you get something in Mexican and it gets wrapped up. Right? What do we wrap them in? What's that?
Foil.
Well, that's true, but I mean an edible thing and we wrap them up in.
Oh.
Like a taco shell.
Yeah, a tortilla. Do they feature those with Chinese? Do you see tortillas? No, we don't have those types of things with that. Anything else?
Like Chinese use chopsticks.
Great. We wouldn't think of that with Mexican food. A lot of times we eat Chinese with chopsticks and we wouldn't dream of that with Mexican food. Yes?
Raw food.
Which one?
Chinese.
Chinese will commonly use like sushi. No, I'm not eating raw fish. If you can catch it out of the reservoir and eat it 3 minutes later, I'm not eating it. Not a good idea. So, if we were to fill in Mexican and Chinese, how would we write this thesis statement then? Pretty simple. I know you're thinking, it can't be this easy. Yeah, it's this easy. Plain.
Mexican food and Chinese food share some similarities.
Yep. Once again, if you read this, does it tell me what your essay is going to be about?
Yeah.
What are you going to expect to read about in reading that thesis statement? And how they are and different, right? Different, similar, and different. Yeah. Now, maybe this is too easy, but this is what I teach. This is, to me, this is effective. because without being too specific, this is exactly what I can expect to read. And that's your purpose. The purpose of an introduction is to tell the reader what? Yes?
What like it's about.
Yeah, this is what I'm going to tell you without saying what this essay is about. We just simply say it. Mexican and Chinese food share some similarities but have some differences. This is what I'm going to tell you about those two things. Then the body paragraphs are the information, right? This is what I'm telling you. And then at the end, the conclusion, what does it do? This is what I've told you, in case people are dopey and they don't remember, right? So, introduction, this is what I'm going to tell you. That's why the thesis statement works down here at the end. And then the body, this is what I'm telling you. This is the information. Then at the end, the conclusion, this is what I've told you, which is why we need 2 thesis statements. All right? So if we were to reverse the original order of the thesis statement, we can create a second one. And this time we put it in the conclusion. Now remember, if in the introduction I'm basically saying this is what I'm going to tell you, and then in the conclusion I'm going to say this is what I've told you, I need to tell you twice. Correct? And so I don't want a carbon copy of the first, but if I flip the order, then I can come up with the second one. Notice the original was softball and baseball share some similarities but have many differences. We did this one before, right? So to create the second one, all I have to do is take what's at the end and put it at the beginning, and take what was at the beginning and put it at the end. Some similarities and differences can be found between softball and baseball. It's the same information stated backward. We have chocolate and vanilla ice cream at my house. At my house, we have vanilla and chocolate ice cream. Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Is it saying the same thing?
Yeah.
But in a different way, but the message is the same. If I were to read this sentence, does it tell me what I just read? If I put this in the conclusion, does it remind me what I just read about? Yes. If I put this in the introduction, will it tell me what I'm about to read? If I put this in the introduction, would it tell me what I'm about to read? If I put this in the conclusion, will it tell me what I just read? They're interchangeable. So students ask me, which do I put first? It's your choice. You're writing the essay. You have 2 of them, and that's, remember I told you I always have them write a thesis statement first, and then they write the second one right after that, and all they do is switch the order. So now they come to the essay already knowing what they're going to end the introduction with and begin the conclusion with. So they're ready to roll. They know what the information, it's God flashing, telling me I'm about out of time. Okay, how do I go back to the previous one? All right, so let's come up with a topic that's not food related. It doesn't even have to be compare and contrast. Let's pick something. You got 3 guys in the back of the room. Those are good ones to work with. What would we say about that? Let's say we're going to write an essay about Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. They just won the NBA championship. Good for them. Were you excited? I was excited. That block was amazing. In the last game, LeBron's block, that was an amazing event. He was 20 feet behind that guy when he caught him and blocked the shot.
Amazing.
Wow, that was a give-up play, and he wouldn't give up. But, I'm not here to talk about that. I just get excited and thinking about it. But let's say we were going to write, and it's perfect. Because when you think about it, if we follow this model of who's Kevin Love and who's Kyrie Irving and who's LeBron James, it's all stacked up for us. What would our topic be? Yes?
Basketball players,
For?
Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right, so we're going to talk about 3 great basketball players of the Cavs. That's our topic, right? Who would those 3 be? There they sit. Kevin Love, and in the middle, Kyrie Irving, and last but not least, LeBron James. what would each of these body paragraphs be about? Well, one would be about everything about Kevin Love. He joked. The middle one would be about Kyrie Irving, great shot at the end. And the third one would be all about LeBron. So if we were to say Kevin Love, use your imagination, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and this is members of the Cleveland Cavaliers, or great basketball players of the Cleveland Cavaliers, what would we say in a thesis statement? Keep it simple.
Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James all play for the Cavs, but in different positions.
See, you don't need the but in different positions part. That's extra. So that's a start. And we have to start somewhere, and there's a start. Let's be a little more specific. He's right with those three, but what can we say about them? Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James are
Great basketball players that play for the Cavs.
great basketball players for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, if we put all this together into a thesis statement, we say three great basketball players for the Cleveland Cavaliers are Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. What's my essay about? What I just said. What does the thesis do? Tells what you're about to read. Now, if I started with three great basketball players of the Cleveland Cavaliers are Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. On my second thesis statement, I would start with the names, right? Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James are all three great basketball players for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's what my essay is about. This is why it's so easy. If you take the time to simply plan ahead of what you're going to write about, you're writing your thesis statement. You just need to put it together in one thing.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, we're going to talk about transitions and transition phrases because a lot of times students don't use them correctly or they don't.
You're talking about like at the end of the paragraph to go from one idea to the next?
Yeah, and in the conclusion, when you were reversing the thesis statement, which I'm so excited because I didn't realize you could do that.
It's really simple.
Would you put maybe some kind of transition before?
Sure. Can I show you how we do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's say we're skipping ahead.
Okay,
Let me freeze that for a minute.
Okay.
Are there any questions about what we've done so far? Does this seem pretty easy for you? All right. Now, I'm not the one that's going to point you in the direction of where this is going to take you on your essay that you're writing. The lady in the back of the room is going to do that. Okay? I'm just here to talk to you about thesis or thesis statement. Understand, the word thesis is the same word that gives us the word theory, right? It's your belief on something, right? In your belief, this is how baseball and softball are similar. So if you use thesis statement or thesis, it's the same thing. That's like saying pizza pie or pizza. It's the same thing. It doesn't change the way it tastes. So thesis statement, they are interchangeable. And the reason I'm saying that is sometimes I just simply call it a thesis, and I don't want you to get confused. It's the same thing. Your real name is? Ashley Copus. Sometimes I might call you Ashley. Does it change who you are? Sometimes I just say thesis instead of thesis statement. It doesn't change what it is. It's kind of like the first name. You follow me? I just don't want you to get confused if I just say thesis. But thesis and thesis statement are the same thing. All right, so let's address what Ms. Stoneham asked, transition. First of all, let's understand what a transition is supposed to do. What does trans mean? Where do we see the beginning of trans in a word? Give me some words that feature trans.
Transgender.
Transgender, which means they've done what? It's a hot topic. Huh? The key word there is change. They've gone from one to the next. Okay? Anybody come here from a different school ever in their whole life? Okay, where'd you start out, Raven? Willard. So you transferred to South Central, yes? She moved from one spot to the next. Now think about that. We changed from a boy to a girl or vice versa. We changed from a Willard Flash to a South Central Trojan. We went from point A to point B, yes? If we get in a car, you have transportation. It's taking you from point A to point B. So with that idea of trans comes movement, right? So when we use a transition, we are going to move from one topic to the next. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to look at Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving again, right? So this is going to be a body paragraph about Kevin Love. This is going to be a body paragraph about Kyrie. This is going to be a body paragraph about LeBron. The problem is when I write it in an essay, I'm not going to put them side by side. I'm going to stack them on top of each other. Would you agree with that? My paragraph about Kevin Love, if this whole sheet were an essay, my introduction would be about here, and then Kevin, and then Kyrie, and then LeBron, right? What Mrs. Stoneham is talking about is how do we move from a topic about Kevin Love to talk about Kyrie Irving without just simply stopping with a period. You know, I like Kyrie Irving, period. And then you start talking about Kevin Love. It's this big jump. It's like you're hitting speed bumps in the parking lot. Whoa. We want to smoothly move from one idea to the next, right?
Yes,
That's where you're going.
Yes.
So what I would say, and where these come are in between the body paragraphs, right? So if I'm writing an essay about the Cleveland Cavs, I'm talking about Kevin, Kyrie, and LeBron, I need 2 transitions. Why? I have 3 body paragraphs. Why do I need 2 transitions? Well, go ahead.
Because you go from Kevin to Kyrie, and that's one, and then Kyrie to LeBron.
Yeah, I don't need a third one. It's like I got a 9-foot log and I need 3 3-foot logs. How many cuts will I make? 2. I don't need 3 cuts. I need 2 cuts, right? Because with the last cut, I'm going to get my 3-foot log if I measure it correctly, right? So I need 2 transitions. And what I tell 9th graders is transition is the glue that holds them together, right? It's the glue that holds them together. So the first half of my transition sentence needs to be about the topic before. Let's go back to my original and let's apply it to this. Keep going. Back to the softball. Okay, good. Good. So similarities and differences between softball and baseball, right? Even though I might say something like as a transition sentence, even though there are many similarities between softball and baseball, comma, there are many differences as well. Now, what have I set you up to read in the next paragraph? Yes.
About softball, baseball.
About which part of softball and baseball? How they are.
Similar.
No, I just said that.
Oh,
Different. You see what I'm saying? So for Kevin, Kyrie, and LeBron, I might say Kevin Love is a great outside shooter, comma, but Kyrie has great handles on the ball. Now as I start to hint that Kyrie, now when I make that leap in the next paragraph to talk about Kyrie Irving, it's a smooth transition from one idea to the next. So what I tell those freshmen is make the first half of that sentence about what you just talked about, and make the second half of the sentence either hint at or state directly what you're going to talk about next. Right? Back to the food idea. Though Chinese food is very tasty, comma, Mexican food tastes just as good or something along that line, right? Because now I'm showing you the movement between one idea to the next. That's what I teach with teaching transitions to smoothly get to that next part without repeating what you're going to say in the topic sentence.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I require them to write a lead to grab
Hook, we call it.
And I was told by another high school English teacher, I let them use questions because.
Rhetorical questions.
But
That's a good way to think about it.
But I was told by a high school English teacher that that's childish and I shouldn't be teaching that. I was told that a couple of years ago.
I don't know if I agree with it's childish. I think
it's a helpful step in learning how to.
let me give you a good example. Sage, you play basketball.
Yeah.
What's your strong hand, right or left? So when you started learning to dribble, did you use your right or left? Right? To learn this skill. And then later, as you got a little bit older and a little more comfortable with that left hand, did you start to employ the right hand? Yeah. And to me, it's baby steps.
That's why I let them do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with using a rhetorical question. Another one is a hypothetical situation. You guys know what I mean by a hypothetical situation? Hypothetical is you put someone in a situation. You're out in the woods and you have no weapon and a bear's about to attack. What do? That's a hypothetical situation. Not one you want to be in, but it is a hypothetical situation. If you were writing a story or you're writing an essay about the best way to handle bear attacks or something like that, which they say is pretend like you're dead. It should be hard to do when a big bear's gnawing on your back to pretend like you're dead. Think about it. If that's what you were writing about, then it would work, right? So a hypothetical situation is good because it sucks the reader into it. What would I do if I was being attacked by a bear? Did you see the movie The Revenant where that happens to the guy? Yeah, it was pretty gruesome. Or the other one I use that I teach people to use is find a quote that applies to what it is that you're doing. Benjamin Franklin said, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And then you say, it is important to get a good night's sleep. If you were writing a health paper about the importance of rest, right? I mean, you're supposed to be active. You're supposed to hydrate. But one of the untold truths about proper care of your body is getting enough rest, especially teenagers. Kaylee's thinking, man, you need to tell my mom I need to sleep more. Well, that's really true because it's shown that teenagers just do not get enough sleep, primarily because they stay up too late. Not sleep till noon, that kind of sleep, but you know what I'm saying? Especially when school starts. Stay up till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night and then get up at 6. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. So if you're writing a paper about that, about being to bed early from a guy like Benjamin Franklin, the credibility that Benjamin Franklin has as an individual now transfers itself to your paper. And it sounds like you know what you're talking about, like you did some research on it. So I allow my kids to use the computer to come up with quotes on topics that they're writing about. You following me here? So that's one of the other things we use for a hook. The tricky part then in the introduction is how do we get from the hook at the beginning to the thesis at the end?
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of practice. How do we get from Benjamin Franklin to say in the thesis statement? Studies show that getting enough sleep is extremely important for a high school student. That's my thesis, right? How do I get from that to that? And that's part of where your artistic flair comes into play, hopefully, right?
We're putting like a.
I think conclusions are a lot easier to
statistic
write.
About
That works too.
that would go in the middle, right?
I mean, you could, or you could start with that
Or
statistic.
start with the statistic, yeah.
As an attention getter. My wife was just telling me the other day that studies are showing that presently kids their age are getting only one serving of either a fruit or a vegetable for a week. One. And virtually zero are drinking any kind of milk product. Right? There's a whole lot of pop and a whole lot of Monster and a whole lot of Gatorade and a whole lot of water. They're not getting the milk that they need. Now, I'm not saying in this part of the country where I think we're a little better fed than a lot of other places are, but more in urban areas where you don't grow up either on or near a cow farm. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of scary when you think about it. But to me, a statistic like that 65% of American students don't get enough milk. It's pretty startling, right? And that's a good way to lead off a paper if that's what you were writing about, the importance of nutrition or the importance of milk. So what I'm saying, in a nutshell, is as much as this thesis statement has to be spot on and answer directly what I'm going to tell you in the paper, the introduction from that point ahead of it is your opportunity to really draw the reader in and make them want to keep reading. To me, those are the ones that score the high marks. Again, the conclusion is easy because you're highlighting key things you said. You don't want to do that with the introduction. Two purposes to an introduction. Number one, make the reader want to keep reading. Number two, tell them exactly what it is you're going to tell them in the paper. That's what the thesis is for. The 4 sentences in front of that should concern themselves with making it for an interesting read. We're about out of time.
12:15.
We're getting there. See some people turning around. He's talking about Mexican food. I'm getting hungry.
Do you guys have any questions? Because I know that I did not explain this at all, and I don't know how Mr. Benningfield explains it. I can't speak
But-
for him.
Does this make sense to you, what I'm describing? And using the KISS method, just keep it simple, because direct and to the point. I feel the same way about topic sentences. Milk is good for you, period. Now explain in the rest of the paragraph and make that statement, right? You need 4 servings of vegetables in 2 days' time, period. And then explain after that. Topic sentences and thesis statements need to be short, direct, and to the point. Shorter the better, because they're easier to understand.
I probably should have separated the similarities and differences.
It's not. I mean, I don't know how you write your paper, but it's probably not too late to do that.
It's not too late. It's a children.
Have they started too much on it? It should simply be a. They doing it on the computer,
Yeah.
so it should simply be a cut and paste, right?
Well, I just, I've been researching different ways to do comparison. I did see one where they put it all in one paragraph, but for them, I think it's harder.
It's overwhelming, and it's hard to read.
Yeah.
It's like a ping pong game. We're going back and forth, similarities and differences.
Because I want them to explain. Just don't tell me that Charlie worked in a bakery. Why do you think the director chose him to work in a bakery instead of the factory? Because it made for better viewing of what these people did to him because he's mentally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh, Flowers for Algernon.
yeah, possible.
Yeah, I've read
They're
that book.
comparing that with the movie Charlie that came
Uh-huh.
out in '68.
Yeah, where I went to college, that guy Daniel Keyes was a teacher there.
Really?
Yeah, at OU. Yeah. He was one of our professors.
Wow.
There was quite a lineup to get in one of his classes
Yeah.
because he taught creative writing. I never had the pleasure of being in there, but I know people who did take him for that class.
Because that would turn this into a 5-essay paragraph. 5-paragraph essay. Right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But I can see similarities and differences between that movie. I could see that, and I would, if I were you, I would have a big brainstorming session, getting them down, what the similarities and differences are, letting them feast on that, because to me, what you're really trying to get at is not so much the accuracy of that, it's just the process of coming up with similarities and differences, compare, contrast, essays. That's really what you're after, right?
Yeah, but I want to know too.
Sure.
Why do you think the director chose not to put this part in?
But at the same time, so that 2 weeks from now, you might say, all right, so how would you set up a compare contrast essay between Dwight Eisenhower and Abraham Lincoln? Right?
Yeah.
So you could still do that and they would still have that skill. Yeah, that's the value that I see.
I was making it too difficult for them. Sorry, guys.
Cheers.
But did this help?
Yeah.
Okay, we're probably going to go back and read this revamping.
Okay. Let me say one last thing. I learned this painting spent my summers painting. That's how I got extra money, right? And I was working with this guy who's a professional painter, and I was struggling. He said, "You need to clean out your brush." That's fine. He said, "Just clean it out." He said, "Just remember this about painting. You work the paint. Don't let the paint work you." And he was right, because the paint was sticking and I was struggling. I was making it harder than it needed to be because I wouldn't take 5 minutes to clean out my brush. You work the paper. Don't let the paper work you. You are in command of what you're saying. Don't feel like you got these handcuffs on and there's things that I just don't know how to say it. Just relax and say it. Just like you would speak it, write it down, then go back and change it later. It's not important. It's perfect the first time. Don't be concerned. How do you spell this? Not in the rough draft. Don't worry about that in that rough draft. Just get your ideas down. You work the paper. Don't let the paper work you. Okay? Make it easy. If it's easy for you to write, it's going to be easy to read. If it's hard for you to write, it's going to be hard to read. You work the paper. Don't let the paper work you. Have confidence in what you're saying. That's the hardest thing to teach high school students, is to have confidence in what they're saying. The confidence, like anything else, is the key. You go up to bat and you know you're going to hit the ball. It's a different feeling than getting up there shaking in your boots. I don't know if I can hit this one. Right? It's a bad situation to be in. Just get up there and hit it. Just write it. Confident. Keep it simple. Best thing I can tell you. About out of time. Then I get to go out and run in the rain. Thanks, guys, for being so attentive.